3 years of professional boxing without defeat, at the same time producing some spectacular finishing and some very exciting sports night action.
Oh, what a good right from Magri. He's got him. Trying to stay in this fight. Trying to stay in the ring. They ought to strike a medal for Smith. He's over again. Oh. Well, he may go. He has 30 seconds. Doesn't know where he is. Round 3. But he takes a good punch, Vargas. He's been in real trouble 2 or 3 times now. But Magri is surely going to have him. There he goes. He's almost out on top of it.
Last night, Barrett Duff Promotions presented Charlie at the start of their new season at the Wembley Conference Centre against former world flyweight champion Alfonso Lopez of Panama. Magri had recently been dropped from #1 contender to #2 in the WBC rankings. He needed a good win over Lopez to confound those rankings and confirm his world standing.
There is no doubt that Magri must win this tonight to maintain any sort of world status, and Lopez is quite clearly the best class man he's ever fought. Alfonso Lopez, 27, known sometimes as Piedrita, which means little stone, and other times he's known as the little tractor. All action. Former WBA flyweight champion 4 years ago. Considered now to be going down the hill, but still represents a major threat to Magri's 100% winning record as a pro. Useful crowd here at the Wembley Conference Centre turned up for this fascinating international flyweight contest sponsored by White and Mackay. Harry Gibbs refereeing, enormous figure in the ring, towering over these 2 little men. It's clearly going to be a fast and interesting fight. 2 class little men. Magri popping up left hand easily, moving around nicely on his feet. Coming through this first round well, Magri. Punching a little bit faster and more accurately than the former world champion. Lopez, 27 years old, who won the WBA flyweight championship in Manila when he stopped Terbito Salavaria of the Philippines in the 15th and final round of that title fight, and the punch that started it all was a right hand. Again, Lopez off the stool at 45 seconds. Surprising for a man who's reputed not to have stamina. Beginning to hurt Lopez, even the one on the top of the head made him blink and look quite uncomfortable. At the same time as Magri begins to open up, so come the moments when he must occasionally expose himself to the Lopez right. And although Magri is building up a lead, this little man is by no means beaten yet. Magri has made all the running so far in this fight. He's taken the fight to Lopez for 3 rounds now, and he's scored well. But clearly, it's not over. And all the time, Magri must beware of the right-hand counter. And he might just have in mind the fact that Lopez earlier this year in Mexico City was stopped in 5 rounds by the man who's now taken Magri's place as the WBC #1 world title challenger, Antonio Avella. Avella stopped this man in 5 rounds. I wonder if Magri has it in mind to try and do it faster. Now we'll see whether Magri raises the pace a bit here. He can't afford to stand off. Made a good start, but he certainly did relax in the 5th. One on the beard, somebody shouted to Magri. His legs for a moment there looked as though they were turning to rubber, but I think he's all right. A little bit of a mark around Magri's right eye. There was one very good left hand Lopez threw near the end of the round, just before he caught the return from Magri, and I've got a feeling that that left hand has made a bit of a mark by Magri's right eye. 3 rounds to go, and a lot of battle left in this. Magri, the British and European flyweight champion. And Magri is bleeding quite heavily from the nose and mouth, and looking rather the worse for wear. And this is proving to be a very hard battle indeed now for Magri. And Lopez is moving on to the attack in the 8th. And Magri is bleeding a lot. And suddenly Charlie Magri finds out what world status fighting is all about. Magri's defences now are looking very, very shaky. That's the second really hard round in a row for Magri. And he's got 2 to go. It is not over yet. He didn't impress himself strongly enough on this man. He had 4 good rounds, and then he began to slow down. And ever since then, Lopez has become a more and more difficult and dangerous opponent. Now then, can Magri hold himself together for the last 2 rounds and try to keep the lead he built up in the early rounds? It's beginning to be whittled away by Lopez. Magri camp now really must begin to hope that Lopez's stamina does begin to run out. Good attack. Late in the round, but effective. Good comeback by Magri just when he needed it. That will give the corner some encouragement, let alone Charlie. The going was getting very, very hard, but he pulled himself together, he summoned up all his willpower, and he went at the man, and he scored heavily in the closing 30 seconds. Good little attack by Magri here at the end of the 9th, putting his punches together well, and hammering Lopez about the head.
Seconds out, 10th and last round.
So, this international flyweight contest, sponsored by White & Mackay, has proved to be a little cracker. It's proved very hard for Magri, but it is a sample of the sort of thing he must expect if he moves into real world class. Built up a good lead in the early rounds, and then began to fall away from the 5th round, but got it together again in the 9th. Now, can he put in a really fine finish here and establish himself among the leading contenders for a world title fight? Lopez now beginning to look really tired in the closing seconds. What a fine finishing performance by Charlie Magri. And Magri is the winner on points. He couldn't stop the man, but he won it by a fair distance, I suspect, in the end. So they'll be happy in that corner. I've no doubt they could have done without the middle rounds when Magri looked a bit shaky, but in the end he's beaten this good little former world champion, Alfonso Lopez, who himself gets a really good cheer from this crowd at the Wembley Conference Centre.
Charlie, that was a hard little fight.
It was, yeah. You know, I expected a sort of a long sort of fight, but I expected it to go a bit different than that area, you know.
You seemed to ease off a bit after 4 rounds. You had 4 very good rounds, and you started to coast a little, it seemed to me.
That's right. You know, I don't know what happened. I was sort of went into sort of a rut, you know. I had a bit of respect for his right hand, and I don't know, Terry was trying to pull me out of that little rut what I got into, sort of going forward, pulling away, you know. I just got my left hand going, but I was a bit wary of it, and it just went on sort of thing.
In fact, you've got a bit of a swelling on that.
Yeah, I'd done that in the 4th round. It was no excuse, like, because it was just sort of gradually getting sort of
quite swollen, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got it behind you, Charlie.
Lovely, yeah. I needed it. I beat a former world champion, and that wasn't bad.
Right. Now, Manager Lawless, what are the prospects of a world title fight for Charlie? And is he ready for one?
Yeah, I think he's ready. The fact that he beat Lopez so easily on points, and the fact that Lopez has got a decision over the current world champion, I think he's good enough to fight for it. Whether we'll get it just yet is another matter. You know, they've shifted Charlie from number 1 to number 2. So now it's a little bit fighting inside the ring and as well as outside the ring.
Shoji Oguma, the champion.
Correct.
Getting on a bit.
Yeah, 28, but a very good champion. An awkward counter-punch in southpaw. Not the best of choices.
So if you had to put a date on it, when do you think the likely time is?
I would think we're going to go through to March time now.
Well, clearly Charlie will be having 2 or 3 more.